Madam President, I've read the accounts, and so have many of you. A young mother from Honduras, two young sisters from Guatemala, a 6-year-old child from El Salvador. They're all told by a local cartel that for a price, a better life awaits them in America. They're told, as evidenced by those chanting Biden, Biden at the border, that this new president has opened the borders and that amnesty is imminent. So get in while you can. These vulnerable people are flocking to smugglers and violent criminals and paying them all that they have for their chance to get in while they can. In the last month, traffickers have allegedly made as much as $14 million a week smuggling men, women, and children across the border. And once indebted to cartels and coyotes, the price these vulnerable people pay is far more costly than money. According to media reports, men are used as slaves, women are raped endlessly. In fact, a third of the women making their way to the border are reportedly sexually assaulted, and 68% of the people coming across the border are physically assaulted. Children are rented, trafficked, and recycled, as they put it, forced to pose as the child of one illegal immigrant after another to activate the so-called Flores get-out-of-jail-free card. One former Border Patrol agent told me that the smugglers prefer to use babies because they're unable to tell Border Patrol agents that these are not, in fact, their parents. And what of those who escape the clutches of the cartels? Well, estimates of how many children are currently in Customs and Border Patrol custody vary from more than 4,000 children to well over 15,000. Thousands of these children are being held, packed into housing facilities for well over the 72-hour limit required by Flores, and with no end in sight. The Biden administration is doing all it can to hide the humanitarian crisis created by its own immigration policies, a disaster that Secretary Mayorkas refuses to acknowledge as a crisis. They've denied media access and appear to be enforcing an unofficial gag order on Border Patrol agents. Journalists have not been permitted inside the detention facilities since President Biden took office. Now, it shouldn't be a surprise to any of us that the Biden administration's open border policies have resulted in this overwhelming crisis. And a crisis it is. This is what then-candidate Biden promised us in the very first Democratic presidential primary debate. He promised us that when he became president, there would be immediate surges along the border. Unfortunately, in this case, he has delivered exactly what he promised. So how exactly did he deliver? Well, first, he made it known that once he was elected, the border would be open for business. Then he reversed course on a number of Trump-era common-sense immigration policies. This incentivized vulnerable people to entrust their lives and the lives of their children to dangerous coyotes and cartels. What are these policies? The Safe Third Country policy, implemented by the Trump administration, requires asylum seekers to apply for asylum in the first safe country in which they arrive. President Biden has moved to repeal that rule. The expansion of the Flores settlement agreement also creates perverse incentives in our immigration law. Flores is about protecting children, and yet in the application of the expansion, we've put children in even greater danger of becoming victims of trafficking and cartel manipulation. The Biden policy of keeping all unaccompanied alien minors in the United States, as my fellow senator from Utah has pointed out, actually incentivizes parents to separate themselves from their children by entrusting their children to a cartel or a coyote to bring them to the United States for their chance at amnesty. By moving to loosen the requirements of asylum and expand its application, President Biden has invited immigrants who could find safety in other regions of their own country or an adjacent country to make the dangerous journey to the United States. What we need are clear requirements to preserve the opportunities for asylum for those who need it the most. No, America is the land to which those seeking a better life look for relief, and we should provide relief where we can. We also have a duty to protect our border, our citizens, and our laws, our national interests. And at the very least, we have a duty to eliminate policies that empower cartels and coyotes to exploit women and children. We must stop incentivizing vulnerable people to make a journey that will very rarely lead to the outcome they desire. To this end, and together with Congressman Andy Biggs and several of my fellow senators, I've introduced the Stopping Border Surges Act to address some of the more egregious loopholes in our immigration laws. This bill remedies the expansion of the Flores Settlement Agreement that puts so many children in danger by requiring the release of minors with any adult claiming to be the child's parent. It provides expedited processing for unaccompanied minors from all countries. Process is currently available only to children from Mexico and Canada. Immediate processing will blunt the incentive for parents to send their children on this dangerous journey alone. In an effort to end the trafficking of children by cartels, it strengthens protections for children released to adults within the United States. It tightens the asylum process so that we can better serve those who genuinely need the protections we can offer. And it incentivizes immigrants to enter our country through official ports of entry. This bill offers a new common sense series of reforms that will help stem the flood of immigrants at our border and free vulnerable women and children from the clutches of the cartels and of the coyotes. And for that reason, I urge all of my colleagues to support it, to join it, to vote for it. And now, having previously received consent, I'd like to conclude these remarks in Spanish. Remarks directed specifically to those who might be considering making the dangerous, perilous journey to the southern border of the United States or sending their families. Por favor, no manden a sus esposas e hijas por esta jornada para ser abusadas sexualmente por los coyotes y los carteles. Escuchamos cuento tras cuento de traficantes secuestrando mujeres y niños aún mucho tiempo después de cruzar la frontera. En el año 2019, el New York Times documentó decenas de encuentros de estas mismas mujeres. Este es solo uno de estos cuentos de Melvin, una madre de 3 hijos con 36 años de Guatemala. Por muchas semanas, los hombres que ella pagó para traerles segura a los Estados Unidos le drogaron con pastillas y cocaína. No le permitieron salir ni para bañarse. Ella dijo, creo que desde que me pusieron en ese cuarto, me mataron, nos violaron tantas veces que dejaron de vernos como seres humanos. Por favor, escuchen la historia de Melvin. No hagan que sea la historia de su familia. Madam President, as if in legislative session, I ask unanimous consent that the Judiciary Committee be discharged from further consideration of S-884, and that the Senate proceed to its immediate consideration. Further, I ask unanimous consent that the bill be considered read a third time and passed, and that the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table.
Is there objection?
Reserving the right to object.
Senior Senator from Utah.
Madam President, I appreciate the sentiment expressed by my friend and distinguished colleague, the senior senator from Illinois, particularly when he expressed a desire no longer to have people send their children on the long, perilous journey from Central America to the United States. On that, he and I certainly agree, just as we've agreed on a number of other issues over the years. I do think it's regrettable we're not able to reach this agreement today. This is something we ought to be able to solve right here, right now. This is a very dire set of circumstances, and we have to remember what we're talking about dealing with the Flores Agreement. We're in a position where so many of the children coming up through these caravans are in danger because we've got in place policies that require the release of minors to any adult claiming to be the child's parent. We ought to have expedited processing requirements for unaccompanied minors, just as we have in place already for unaccompanied minors coming from Mexico and coming from Canada. It makes me wonder, what is it about children from Central American countries, from any country other than Canada and Mexico, that makes them undeserving of that same expedited processing requirement? This is something we need to do. And yeah, I understand our immigration system is a mess and it needs reform, but I don't understand why it is that anyone would want to accept the default assumption we can't fix anything with immigration. We can't even fix this problem subjecting these unaccompanied minors from Central American countries, including Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. Why can't we give them any relief here until such time as we can come up with a comprehensive immigration reform proposal? It's disappointing to me that we can't do that today. We will keep trying, we'll keep moving on this effort. This is important. And there's, look, regardless of where one stands politically, what party one belongs to, I don't think it's too much to ask to suggest that we shouldn't give kids over to anyone claiming to be their parent without any proof, without processes to make sure that that's a safe person. We wouldn't want our own children treated that way, and we shouldn't treat them that way. Thank you, Madam President.